Something many of us do as neurodivergents is we isolate ourselves from other people because we're engaging in avoidance. We've had a series of negative social experiences where we were rejected because we said or did something that was deemed rude or blunt or insensitive or abnormal or weird by neurotypicals. And we withdraw because that's the only response we can come up with. We're just showing up as our authentic selves, and we're attacked because we come across a certain way that often doesn't align with our intentions and how we presented and why we said what we did at the time. And this disparity, we don't know how to close that gap or how to explain ourselves, or we've tried to explain ourselves and we're dismissed out of hand by the neurotypical who's judged and punished and sometimes excluded us. We come to believe as a result that we are radioactive, that there's something inherently wrong with us. We can't figure out what. Sometimes we defensively want to blame other people and think that they're the ones being too sensitive, that they're being accusatory or misreading us or not giving us grace, which might be true. But a lot of us do internalize the message that there is something wrong with us, that we're inherently flawed, that we're unlovable, that we're broken or defective. And this withdrawal and this retreat, this avoidance, is the only way we know how to respond, because we're not given a toolkit on how to address social rupture, breakdowns in communication. And what the situation might call for is for you to assert yourself and say, hey, I hear you. I'm going to empathically listen and reflect what you shared. This is what's happened. It sounds like I came across this way. I want to acknowledge my impact, apologize if appropriate, but clarify a little bit. Like, this is what I did. This is what my intention was. I can see how it affected you. I'll be more mindful going forward. Please give me a little bit of grace. And then correcting that person's perception, mending the wound that might have been inflicted by your words or your actions, and moving forward. And nobody teaches us that, regardless of whether you're neurotypical or neurodivergent, those skills aren't handed to us from an early age, or even as adults. We have to consciously pursue them through the development of emotional intelligence, attuning to other people's needs, hearing them out, hearing their perspective, trying to take their position in your head and see where they might be coming from. And this is especially hard for many of us as neurodivergents, is because we can't put ourselves in the shoes of a neurotypical person because they don't think the way we do, and vice versa, hence the double empathy problem. We can't intuit what the other person's thought processes might be, why they might arrive at a certain conclusion, why they might make a certain deduction. We can only infer based off our own unique neurotype and the perceptions that flow from that. And this is why we constantly run into this problem of being misunderstood and feeling like no matter what we do, we're going to socially fail and be rejected, which makes us feel like it's pointless. Why even go out there and put yourself out there and try to connect with people if all you're going to get is punishment and judgment in response? And the legacy of this perception that you're somehow radioactive follows you throughout the rest of your life. And many of us become homebodies, in part because we're managing other needs, such as fatigue levels, sensory overwhelm, but we're becoming, introverts. We might be inherently introverts. That's a factor that's true of many people, but we might become avoidant to the extent that we're isolates, that we're living in our bedrooms and never coming out of the bedrooms and not socially engaging, because we can't close that gap. We can't identify what the cause of this constant misunderstanding that seems to happen in social interactions is. We don't know how to repair, and we don't know how to explain. Often when we're not diagnosed, there's no explanation other than this vague sense of confusion about why this keeps happening. You notice patterns, but you can't explain it. And you start to believe again that there's something wrong with you, and that you're just going to hurt people and harm them, and that you're better off not being in interpersonal relationships with people because it's just going to open you up to disappointment and other people to anger, frustration, and hurt. And this is where, the two worlds separate, and we don't get the benefit of connection, and neurotypicals don't get the benefit of our presence, what we bring to the table through our unique neurotype, our energy, our inventiveness, our pattern-based thinking, whatever it is, our unique neurodivergent traits really can enrich the world. But when we perceive ourselves to be radioactive and we withdraw and isolate and avoid, they don't stand to benefit from what we have to offer the world. And we become, again, very isolated and often lonely. And we start to develop perceptions about ourselves and about the world. We see it all as a foregone conclusion. We become very fatalistic about our prospects ever succeeding in the world or being accepted and people understanding us. And then we get stuck in mental loops of finding evidence to substantiate that and becoming more and more entrenched in our perception that we are radioactive, and more entrenched in our desire to avoid and our resentment towards the world at large for not understanding or accepting us. And it's a no-win situation, right? There's no positive outcome that comes from that. If we can start to separate ourselves from this perception that we are radioactive, that there's something inherently wrong, bad, defective about us, if we just recognize that it's a result of breakdown in communication a lot of the times, misunderstandings across neurotypes, that we're just inherently different rather than defective, that we're built different, we can start to destigmatize and hopefully replace that internalized ableism and shame with self-compassion, and we can return into the world with greater bravery, self-confidence, and work on building those skills to communicate assertively. And it's frustrating that it often falls to us to be the emotionally intelligent ones, to bridge the divide between these two different neurotypes, to live with one foot in both worlds and speak bilingually across the neurotype and understand what they might be interpreting as a neurotypical, and then understanding your perspective, and then trying to marry the two and explain it and help the other person understand. And it's a shame that the labor often falls to us to do that when we're already taxed with the demands of day-to-day life and navigating these situations. But if we can be courageous and venture back out into the social arena and try again and cultivate those skills, hopefully over time that gap can be closed and we can find ourselves having more successful experiences, and we can depathologize ourselves and come out of that mindset of seeing ourselves as inherently flawed and into a place of understanding our inherent self-worth and showing up in the world and giving of ourselves in a way that people can benefit from our unique neurodivergent traits, our personalities, our communication, and cognitive styles. Have you experienced this phenomenon where you've retreated because you perceived yourself to be radioactive, maybe before you were diagnosed and didn't understand why you were having these social situations? And how have you come out of it? If you have, are you stuck, feeling stuck? What are things that have been successful in helping you bridge that divide between neurotypes, neurodivergent, neurotypical? I would love to hear all about your experiences.